My wife took everything in the divorce. The house overlooking Willow Creek. The lake cabin where we spent every summer. The savings account I'd built over 32 years of work. She even took my mother's wedding ring, the one she'd promised never to touch. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask for anything. I simply sat there and signed every page the lawyer slid across the table. My attorney stared at me like I'd gone insane. "Rachel, are you absolutely sure?" I nodded. Across the room, my husband smiled. Not a happy smile. A victorious smile. The kind of smile someone wears when they believe they've finally won. At the time, he thought he'd beaten me. 3 days later, he called me screaming. And everything changed. Because he had finally opened the box. The box he'd fought harder to get than the house. The box he'd spent 20 years pretending didn't exist. The box hidden in our attic. And inside that box was a truth powerful enough to destroy every lie he'd built our marriage on. My name is Rachel Harper. At 58 years old, I thought I knew everything about the man I'd spent 34 years loving. I was wrong. The funny thing about betrayal is that it rarely arrives all at once. It comes in pieces. Tiny cracks. Small moments you explain away because the alternative hurts too much. For me, it started with a phone call. 2 years before the divorce. It was nearly midnight. Michael was in the shower when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have looked. 34 years of marriage had earned trust. But the phone buzzed again. And again. Then a fourth time. Something felt strange. The screen lit up. One name appeared. Claire. No last name. Just Claire. I frowned. I didn't know any Claire. The message preview disappeared before I could read it. A minute later Michael rushed out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. The moment he saw me looking toward the phone, his expression changed. Only for a second. But I noticed. "What is it?" he asked. "Who's Claire?" His face froze. Then he laughed. Too quickly. "Just someone from work." "At midnight?" "It's nothing." Nothing. Funny how often that word appears before everything falls apart. The next morning I tried forgetting it. I truly did. But over the following months, strange things kept happening. Michael began guarding his phone. He started leaving the room whenever calls came in. He worked later than ever before. Weekend business trips suddenly appeared. And every time I asked questions, his answers came faster. Cleaner. Prepared. As though he'd rehearsed them. One evening our daughter Emma noticed it too. We were having dinner when Michael stepped outside to answer another call. Emma watched through the window. Then looked at me. "Mom." "What?" "Something's weird with Dad." My stomach tightened. "What makes you say that?" "He hasn't touched his food." She lowered her voice. "And he keeps smiling at his phone." I forced a laugh. But Emma wasn't wrong. Our son Noah noticed it too. 3 weeks later he stopped by unexpectedly. Michael was supposedly working. Again. Noah sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee. "Dad's never around anymore." I stared into my mug. "Work's been busy." Noah snorted. "Dad hates work." That made me smile despite myself. It was true. Michael loved fishing. Family barbecues. Movie nights. Work had always been something he tolerated. Not something he chose over family. Yet suddenly it consumed his life. Or so he claimed. Then came the receipt. The receipt changed everything. I found it inside his jacket while doing laundry. A jewelry store. $3,400. My hand started shaking. I checked the date. 3 days earlier. There was only one item listed. Diamond necklace. I stared at the paper for nearly 5 minutes. My birthday wasn't for another 7 months. Our anniversary had already passed. So who was the necklace for? That night I confronted him. I placed the receipt on the table. Michael's face went pale. For the first time in our marriage. He looked caught. Explain. He stared at the paper. Then at me. Then away. It's not what you think. Every guilty person in history has said those exact words. Then tell me what it is. His jaw tightened. I can't. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because hearing those words hurt more than any confession. You can't? No. Or you won't? He stood. I'm trying to protect someone. The room went silent. Someone. Not something. Someone. My heart broke right there. Because innocent husbands don't say they're protecting someone. They say there's been a misunderstanding. But Michael didn't. He simply walked away. And for the first time in 34 years, I wondered if my marriage had been a lie. What I didn't know was that things were about to get much worse. Because 2 weeks later, I followed him. And what I saw that afternoon made divorce seem inevitable. I watched my husband step out of his truck, walk across a parking lot, and embrace another woman. Then he handed her something small. Something that sparkled in the sunlight. The same sunlight reflecting off a diamond necklace receipt hidden in his jacket. And at that moment, I pulled out my phone, took a photograph, and accidentally captured something far more important than the affair I thought I was exposing. Something hidden in the background. Something I wouldn't understand until much later. But when I finally did, it changed everything. The photograph sat on my phone for almost 3 months before I looked at it again. 3 months of sleepless nights. 3 months of excuses. 3 months of pretending my marriage wasn't collapsing while everyone around me watched it happen. After I saw Michael hug that woman in the parking lot, something inside me shut down. I stopped asking questions. Stopped looking for explanations. Stopped fighting for answers. Because deep down, I believed I already had them. The woman had long dark hair. She looked younger than me. Maybe 40. Maybe younger. And when Michael handed her that small velvet box, she smiled through tears. Then she kissed his cheek. I drove away before I saw anything else. That night he came home after 9. I was sitting at the kitchen table. The photograph lay beside my coffee cup. His face drained of color the moment he saw it. Rachel. I held up my hand. No. Please let me explain. Is there anything left to explain? His shoulders slumped. Not angry. Not defensive. Just tired. That somehow hurt even more. You've already made up your mind. I looked at him. You bought her jewelry. Silence. You lied to me. More silence. You disappeared for months. Still nothing. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. I never wanted you to find out this way. I felt my heart crack. Not because he admitted the affair. Because he practically confirmed it. You found a different way? His eyes filled with tears. But he never answered. And that silence became the loudest confession I'd ever heard. The divorce began 6 weeks later. At first Emma refused to believe it. Our daughter had always been optimistic. The peacemaker. The one who believed every problem could be solved if people talked long enough. She came to my apartment one afternoon carrying coffee and hope. Mom. I already knew the look on her face. No. You haven't even heard me. No. She sighed. Dad says there's something you don't understand. I laughed bitterly. Oh, now he wants to explain? He looks miserable. He stopped answering his father's calls. Ignored every text. Refused every invitation. One night he showed up carrying a box. Inside were family photographs. Pictures he'd removed from his house. I don't want to look at him right now. I opened my mouth. Then closed it. Because I understood exactly how he felt. Weeks passed. Lawyers got involved. Assets were divided. Papers were filed. Michael never fought. Not once. That should have seemed strange. But I was too angry to notice. The man who argued with customer service over incorrect pizza toppings suddenly surrendered 34 years of assets without resistance. At the time I interpreted it as guilt. Years later I would understand the truth. Then came the attic. The old wooden box. The box that changed everything. The divorce was nearly finalized when Michael brought it up. We were inventorying belongings. Deciding who kept what. The attic contained decades of forgotten memories. Christmas decorations. Old toys. Dust-covered furniture. And one small wooden box. The moment Michael saw it, he froze. Just for a second. But I noticed. My lawyer noticed too. What about that? Michael immediately walked toward it. Too quickly. My pulse jumped. Why did he care? For 20 years neither of us had touched it. I remembered storing it after his mother died. Neither of us had opened it since. What about it? I asked. His voice sounded tight. I'll take that. Interesting. Very interesting. 4 months he'd shown no emotion. No interest. No fight. Yet suddenly he wanted the box. Badly. What is inside? Nothing important. A lie. You don't tense up over nothing important. I looked directly at him. Then smiled. Actually, I want it. His face changed. Fear. Real fear. The kind I'd never seen before. And suddenly I knew. Whatever secret he'd been hiding. It was inside that box. The courtroom battle over the box became absurd. Thousands of dollars spent arguing over a dusty wooden container. My lawyer thought both of us were insane. But Michael wouldn't let it go. Neither would I. Finally the judge became irritated. It's a box. Not to Michael. And not to me. Because by then I was convinced it contained proof. Love letters. Photographs. Something connected to the mystery woman. Something that explained everything. Then something unexpected happened. Michael stopped fighting. Completely. He sat back. Closed his eyes. And surrendered. You can have it. The words shocked everyone. Including me. Just like that. After months of resistance. After endless arguments. He gave up. At the time I thought I'd won. I couldn't have been more wrong. 3 days before the divorce became official, I opened the box. And discovered it was empty. Completely empty. No letters. No photographs. Nothing. I stared into it for almost 10 minutes. Then laughed. All that drama for an empty box. I called my lawyer. There's nothing here. He sounded confused. Nothing? Not a single thing. For the first time, doubt entered my mind. If the box was empty, why had Michael been so afraid? The answer arrived the next morning. I was scrolling through old photographs. Trying to decide which ones to keep. That's when I saw the parking lot picture again. The photo I'd taken months earlier. Michael. The woman. The necklace. But this time, I noticed something in the background. A street sign. And underneath it, the name of a nursing home. My stomach tightened. Why would a nursing home be involved? I zoomed in. Then again. And again. Suddenly I noticed something else. An elderly man standing near the entrance. Watching Michael and the woman. Watching them with tears in his eyes. I didn't know who he was. But for some reason, the sight of him made my skin crawl. That afternoon I decided to find out. So I drove to the nursing home. And what happened there would destroy everything I believed about my husband. Because the woman was there. The elderly man was there. And when he looked at me, he whispered 4 words that turned my entire world upside down. My God, it's Rachel. Then he started crying. And before I could ask who he was, the woman looked at me and said, "You deserve to know what your husband sacrificed for you." At that moment, I realized I had been wrong about almost everything. The elderly man couldn't stop crying. Neither could I. Because the moment I stepped closer, I recognized him. Not from my adult life. Not from recent years. From childhood. A face buried beneath 4 decades of forgotten memories. My knees nearly gave out. No. The word barely escaped my lips. The man nodded through tears. Rachel. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked at the woman standing beside him. Then back at him. Then at the nursing home's entrance. Nothing made sense. Who are you? The old man closed his eyes. As if the answer physically hurt. My name is Thomas Walker. The world tilted. I hadn't heard that name in 43 years. Thomas Walker. My father. The man who disappeared when I was 15. The man I'd spent my entire adult life hating. The man I believed had abandoned our family. I stepped backward. No. Rachel. No. Tears streamed down his face. I know you hate me. Hate you? My voice cracked. You vanished. People entering the nursing home slowed as they sensed the tension. I didn't care. 43 years of pain exploded out of me. Mom worked 3 jobs. He lowered his head. I know. We lost the house. I know. I missed college because we couldn't afford it. His shoulders shook. I know. Do you? The woman standing beside him wiped tears from her eyes. The same woman I'd convinced myself was Michael's mistress. The same woman whose existence had destroyed my marriage. Or so I thought. My name is Claire, she said softly. I stared at her. She looked nothing like the villain I'd imagined. She looked exhausted. Heartbroken. Human. Who are you? I'm Thomas's daughter. I blinked. What? My father remarried years after he left. The words hit like a punch. Another family. Another daughter. Another life. My anger surged. Of course. Of course he'd replaced us. Of course he'd started over. Thomas shook his head violently. No. I turned toward him. You don't get to explain. Please. No. Claire stepped forward. You really do deserve the truth. I laughed bitterly. That's what everyone keeps saying. Then she handed me a folder. A thick folder. Worn from years of use. What is this? She swallowed. Everything your husband has been doing for the last 6 years. My stomach tightened. I opened it. The first page was a bank statement. Michael's name. The second page. Another statement. The third. Another. Then medical bills. Prescription invoices. Care facility payments. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. I stared at the numbers. Confused. What am I looking at? Claire's voice trembled. Your husband has been paying for my father's care. The world went silent. What? 6 years. I looked at Thomas. Then Claire. Then back at the folder. No. Claire nodded. He sold investments. No. He took extra consulting jobs. No. He refinanced properties. I couldn't breathe. Why? Thomas finally answered. Because of me. I stared at him. He wiped his eyes. When your mother got sick 20 years ago, I tried contacting you. My heart stopped. What? I found out she had cancer. The ground seemed to disappear beneath my feet. That's impossible. It's true. Claire quietly removed an envelope from the folder. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter. My mother's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. The room blurred. The letter had never been sent. Instead, it had been returned. Address unknown. I read through tears. Thomas. Rachel doesn't want to hear your name. But if anything happens to me, promise me you'll try again. She's carrying too much anger. Don't let her carry it forever. I couldn't see the rest. The tears were coming too fast. Thomas looked broken. I kept trying. My voice cracked. Why didn't I know? Because every letter came back. Claire answered softly. Your husband found him. I froze. What? 7 years ago. Suddenly everything stopped making sense. Michael found him? How? Why? Claire continued. Your husband hired a private investigator. I stared at her. He what? He wanted to reunite you. The words shattered me. For years I'd believed Michael was betraying me. Meanwhile he had been trying to heal the deepest wound in my life. Thomas lowered his head. When Michael found me, I was already sick. The nursing home suddenly made sense. The medications. The bills. The secret meetings. Everything. Claire pointed toward the folder. Your husband paid for every treatment insurance wouldn't cover. I looked down. The receipts were everywhere. The numbers were staggering. The diamond necklace suddenly flashed into my mind. The necklace. Claire smiled sadly. It wasn't for me. She opened another envelope. Inside was a photograph. Thomas wearing the necklace around his neck. Attached to it was a tiny pendant. Inside the pendant, a picture of me as a child. My knees buckled. I sat down hard on a nearby bench. The tears wouldn't stop. Everything I'd believed was wrong. Every accusation. Every angry word. Every hateful thought. Wrong. Then I remembered the box. The box. My head snapped up. The wooden box. Thomas looked confused. Claire immediately understood. Then she started crying. The box wasn't empty. What? She smiled through tears. It only looked empty. I stared at her. What are you talking about? Claire opened the folder. Hidden inside was a photograph. An old photograph. Inside the attic box. I recognized it immediately. Me. 8 years old. Standing between my mother and father. Smiling. Claire pointed to the bottom corner. A false panel. A hidden compartment. My breath caught. The compartment contained every letter your father wrote to you. My heart stopped. What? Hundreds of them. I couldn't speak. Claire continued. Michael found them years ago. I looked at her. He knew? He read every one. The tears returned instantly. He wanted to give them to you. Why didn't he? Thomas answered. Because I asked him not to. I stared at him. You what? I was ashamed. His voice broke. I wanted to become someone worthy of your forgiveness first. The old man covered his face. But I ran out of time. Silence. Painful silence. Then one final truth emerged. The reason Michael surrendered everything. The reason he never fought during the divorce. The reason he'd let me hate him. Claire looked away. He believed if you found out the truth while you still loved him. Her voice cracked. You'd forgive your father because Michael asked you to. I froze. He wanted the decision to be yours. He said Rachel deserves the truth without pressure. At that moment I broke completely. Not because my husband had betrayed me. Because he'd loved me more deeply than I ever understood. 3 days later I called Michael. He didn't answer. Neither did the second call. Or the third. Finally Noah told me where he was. The lake cabin. I drove there immediately. Michael sat alone on the dock. The same place where we'd spent dozens of summers. When he saw me, he stood. Neither of us spoke. For a long moment we simply stared at each other. Then I walked forward. And hugged him. The way you hug someone after realizing you've almost lost them forever. His arms wrapped around me. And suddenly we were both crying. I know everything. He closed his eyes. Claire told you. I nodded. Why didn't you tell me? His answer came instantly. Because it wasn't my story to tell. The simplicity of that answer somehow made it hurt even more. Months later, the divorce papers were gone. So were the lawyers. The house remained ours. The lake cabin remained ours. And every Sunday, Michael and I visited Thomas together. Not because the past disappeared. Not because pain vanished. But because healing finally became possible. The day Thomas passed away, he was holding my hand. And Michael's. His final words were barely a whisper. I got my family back. Sometimes the greatest acts of love look exactly like betrayal. Sometimes the people carrying the heaviest burdens are the ones saying the least. And sometimes the truth hidden inside an old wooden box isn't a secret at all. It's a second chance.